and Zoning Commission for the City of Apache Junction. Today's date is April 23rd, 2024, and the time is 7 p.m. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Rudy, can I get roll call, please?
Chairman Hanchey.
Here.
Vice Chair Barker.
Here.
Commissioner Gage.
Here.
Commissioner Cantwell.
Here.
Commissioner Bigelow.
Here.
Commissioner Begeman.
Here.
Commissioner Callan.
Here.
All present, we have a quorum, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick reminder to please make sure your microphones are on and talking to your mics. That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Rudy. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda and minutes?
Mr. Chair, I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission accept the agenda as presented and approve the minutes from the April 9th, 2024 regular meeting.
Second.
Rudy, I have a motion and a second. Can I please get a roll call?
Commissioner Callan.
Yes.
Chairman Hanchey.
Yes.
Vice Chair Barker.
Yes.
Commissioner Gage.
Yes.
Commissioner Cantwell.
Yes.
Commissioner Bigelow.
Yes.
Commissioner Begeman.
Yes.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Rudy. All right. There are two public hearings this evening. Case P-23-63-PZ, a proposed plan development rezoning of 18 acres at the southeast corner of US-60 and Goldfield Road. In case P-23-64-GPA, a proposed major general plan land use map amendment to redesignate 18 acres at the southeast corner of US-60 and Goldfield Road. A companion case to rezoning case P-23-63-PZ. Kelsey?
Good evening, Commission members. My name is Kelsey Shatnick, and I'm a planner on staff. And tonight is the second public hearing regarding the rezoning and major general plan amendment request for a proposed rental development to be called Silver Ray. So the subject site is located near the southeast corner of the US-60 and Goldfield Road. The applicant's request includes a major general plan amendment from commercial to high-density residential, a rezoning from general commercial by plan development, or B1PD, and B1PD to high-density multifamily residential by plan development, or RM2PD, to facilitate the development of 271 rental units. And this project will also involve a replat of the existing commercial subdivision in order to combine the northern lots. So again, the zoning on the property is B1PD. However, there are two ordinances that govern this property. Ordinance number 1144 governs all of the parcels north of Resort Boulevard, and ordinance number 1146 governs the southern parcel. I'll go into a little bit more detail and background in the next few slides on both of those ordinances. But in terms of the surrounding zoning, to the north you have state land and the US-60. To the south and to the east you have the Dolce Vita community, and then to the west you have the Golden Vista community. So again, ordinance number 1144 governs the parcels north of Resort Boulevard. This ordinance approved a commercial center in 2000, and the proposed development included pad sites for a gas station, office, retail, service, restaurant, and a two-story hotel. The only business that was developed was the gas station. The rest of the site remains vacant. And then ordinance number 1146, which governs the larger southern parcel. This approved a hospital site in 2000. The development would include a 60-bed hospital campus with a main hospital unit and office medical building, and a helipad was proposed on the northwest corner off of Goldfield Road. Within this ordinance, there was a height restriction to 45 feet, which is about 4 stories. Here's the general plan land use map. Again, the property is currently designated commercial, and the applicant is proposing a redesignation to high-density residential. So here's the proposed site and landscape plan for the development. The development will include about 271 units total. All of the units will be 2 stories and have a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. Each unit will have an individual yard, and then there will be shared amenities throughout the community, including a pool, dog park, walking paths, game lawn. And then there are also garages and carports throughout the community for the residents. Here are the proposed elevations for the site. I've included 3 examples on your screen. However, there are 8 total options. And as you can see that there are multiple materials kind of being included on these elevations, like tile roofs, brick veneer, as well as stucco. And then in terms of public input, a 60-day review notice was sent to local stakeholders and neighboring municipalities, and a sign was posted at the site. Notices were sent out to property owners within 300 feet, and the case was advertised in the newspaper. The applicant also held multiple neighborhood meetings regarding this item. Staff has received multiple calls and emails regarding the proposed development. We've received 17 emails and a letter dropped off at Development Services. We've also received a protest petition that was provided primarily by the residents of Golden Vista. All of this information was provided to you. And throughout all of these calls and emails, the primary areas of concern include the 2-story building height, traffic, availability of water, and property values. So planning staff is generally supportive of this development. However, staff is recommending that at least 5 acres of land on the northern section of the subject site be reserved for a future commercial development. And there are a few different topics we considered when making this recommendation. So first is the voter-approved general plan, which already designates this area commercial. The next would be this property's close proximity to both the US-60 and the future north-south corridor. The concerns regarding changing commercial to residential, and then the limited availability within our city to develop a community commercial development. So our larger commercial properties are becoming increasingly limited, and this site is kind of one of the few remaining commercial properties to be able to develop a larger commercial development. So I wanted to point out one minor change from the information provided in your staff report. This is just a little bit more clarification on those areas being designated commercial. So currently, project-specific condition number 1 states that the applicant shall reserve at minimum 5 acres of continuous land for general commercial development, and we are proposing the language to be changed to lot numbers 1, 3, 4, and 5 of the existing Superstition Falls subdivision shall remain zoned general commercial. So to kind of give you an idea of what this looks like, this is lots 1, 3, 4, and 5. So basically this area that wraps around the gas station and is cut off by a wash right here, this is approximately 5 acres. So we're just kind of adding that a little bit more clarification on this is the area that will remain commercial. So with that, staff is recommending approval of P-23-63-PZ and P-23-64-GPA, subject to the full list of requirements within the staff report. The City Council work session on this item will be held on May 6th, and the City Council public hearing on May 21st. With that, I'd be happy to answer any initial questions you may have. However, the developer is here with the presentation, and both staff and the developer will be available for questions after. Before I hand it over to them or answer questions, I do have a few housekeeping items just to kind of help this process move forward. So generally, we see 3 options for this project. So the first, and recommended motion. So the first would be recommending approval of staff's recommendation, so the proposal that I just gave a presentation on and the conditions of approval in the staff report. The next option would be to recommend approval of the applicant's proposal for the entire site to be developed as multifamily. So that would basically be the elimination of project-specific condition numbers 1 and 2 that reference commercial properties. And then the third, of course, would be to recommend denial to allow the entire property to remain as it's currently zoned. So just as we move forward in the process, those are kind of the 3 basic motions that could be made on this item. And then I do have some language for both options 1 and 2. Option 3 would just be denial and no additional language, so I don't have an option for that, but hopefully that makes it a little bit easier to provide a recommendation and motion when you're ready. So option number 1, staff recommendation, I've noted that it would be subject to the conditions of approval within the staff report, and then along with updated project-specific condition number 1, stating that lots numbers 1, 3, 4, and 5 remain commercial. And then if that were to be the case, Then for the major general plan amendment, the only language that would change would be, it would change from 18 acres to 13 acres so that the general plan designation matches the commercial. And if you were to choose option 2, then it would be the full 18 acres. So hopefully that just makes your process a little bit easier tonight.
Anyone have any questions for Kelsey? Or would we like to hear the planner talk, and then we can come back to either one? Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the Commission. For the record, my name is Greg Davis. I'm a land planner with Iplan Consulting, and with me tonight is our ownership team represented by Jason Barney. So we saw you 2 weeks ago, and 2 weeks isn't nearly long enough to address some of the comments and questions that we had heard if we take them all in totality. But we did our best, and we're trying to limit this presentation to you folks to just those items. We talked about quite a bit. In our presentation, we heard back some comments from you folks, some questions from audience members, so our presentation is focused around that, but we'd be glad to go on to any other topic you'd like at a later point. But the most important topic that we heard and we took notes on was regarding the commercial aspect of it. Was it viable? How much was viable? And we wanted to bring you some more information on why we're proposing this project retain zero commercial as part of this project. So I'm going to turn it over to Jason to talk about that. But just before I do, I just want to reserve some time after his presentation just to cover some of the compatibility issues, some of the land use issues, just so we can remind you of why we chose the product we did, and ultimately then respond to some of the questions that were asked of us at the last hearing that we didn't have an opportunity to respond to. So with that, I'll ask Jason if he'll kindly come up here.
Thank you all for your time tonight and taking the time to look at this project. Like Greg said, I'm going to address the commercial viability aspect. As Kelsey had mentioned, we would like to see you make a motion based on the option number 2, where this moves forward with approval, but without the requirement for commercial, any commercial, and I'll explain in more detail why. In our last meeting, I presented a lot of these ideas. I'm going to provide some additional drill down, some additional context to some of that. First, let me just say this, and Vice Chair Barker had brought this up in the last meeting. I think she made a great point, and that is cities are put in a difficult position where they have to rely on sales tax as a primary means of revenue for their operations, and I understand that. In fact, I was a planning commissioner for Maricopa County for 10 years, so I've been in your position. I understand, and have a great appreciation for what it is you do. But because that was a county planning commission, not a city planning commission, we did not have to contend with this issue of trying to preserve sales tax issues. So we didn't have these kind of cases where, oh no, what are we going to do? We're going to lose the sales tax and that sort of thing. And so, but cities are in that predicament, and I get it. I empathize with it. I respect it. Unfortunately, what that does, though, is sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes it puts cities in a situation where they make planning decisions based more by, the revenue that would be generated from a potential or theoretical sales tax from a thing, as opposed to the planning principle or the particular neighborhood need. It's a little bit of a tail wagging the dog situation sometimes, and it's an unfortunate outcome of the way city revenue situations are structured. Sometimes that pushes projects to become retail that really shouldn't have been retail, either because they weren't viable or there was other planning considerations in the context, either with neighbors or transitions or buffers or things that just didn't make sense. So it's a very tough predicament. I empathize with it. I respect it. I don't have lots of good answers for it, but it's definitely something to consider as you're looking through this. I'd also like to say that staff has been tasked by the City Council with a very important role that I also very much respect and I think is a highly valid role, and that is to preserve the commercial opportunities as much as they can for very much for this reason of the sales tax issue, for the revenue issue. There's certainly quality of life and good planning reasons why staff is tasked with preserving these commercial areas, and so all those are very, very important. So this is me just saying, I appreciate what staff has done. They're doing their job, and they're doing a great job. And by the way, I work in a lot of jurisdictions and a lot of states, and this particular planning staff is fantastic. And they're doing a great job in terms of responding to that important mandate in their role. So thank you to that. But what they have not been tasked with as part of their scope is to look at the actual market viability of some of these sites. And so that's the thing that I would like to talk about, and that's the thing I would like to have you guys consider tonight in whatever motion you might make to steer you toward that option number 2, where you do approve this project forward, and we'll talk about how that actually does, in a very specific way, serve those sales tax generating needs of the city, but without the commercial on the site, simply because we very, very much believe it's not viable. I know commercial. We've done every kind of commercial you can imagine, from Santan Village with huge Dillard's anchored, Macy's anchored kind of projects, all the way down to corner stores and corner gas stations and everything in between. We've done hotels, we've done restaurants. So all these things that would be awesome to see there, done them. So I very much understand the metrics, the dynamics, the demographics, the things that have to happen to make these things happen. And I know what happens when you do a project that didn't have those things. I know what kind of pain that can cause the people who built it. I know what kind of pain that can cause the city, who has to kind of deal with the outcome of either a unperforming project or, even worse, a failed project. All right, this slide is something that you saw before. And so just to repeat what we mentioned before, some of really the main issue with why is this not viable as a commercial site, first and foremost, we don't have enough rooftops. So the current rooftop count in the trade area of this site is more or less similar to what it's been for a very long time. Now granted, Lennar Homes has built some homes north of here. That helps a little tiny bit, not enough. Century Homes is building some homes south of here. It's a fairly small project. It helps a little bit, but not enough. But other than that, there hasn't been a lot of new development there for a long time to add to that rooftop pool that would make this thing viable as a commercial project. In addition, to the south of the site, we've got a lot of things going on that's going to make it a very, very long time and very, very difficult before new development happens to the south on the state land. And we need those rooftops down there. To get commercial to work on this site, we need those rooftops. They're not coming anytime soon. They're not coming for a long time, and we'll get into some of the reasons why. And of course, there's some issues to the north about the kind of density that we have to rely on to make that happen. This site is, it's a freeway site, so logically you would think, hey, that's a great commercial site, but there's much, much better positioned freeway sites that are also struggling, that also have challenges, and this is not anywhere near the viability of those, not even close, and so this is always going to come after those, if ever, in sort of the sequence of events. That was some of the regional context, but locally, we've got some geometry issues that are a real issue. Sitting behind the Chevron, the way that private drive resort boulevard comes in, and we'll get into that in some more detail. And on top of that, the Dolce Vita residents really have expressed as a general consideration, they would rather not see commercial happening on their private drive, driving into their neighborhood. And so, those are the kind of planning principles, planning considerations that need to be taken into consideration when you think about compatibility and neighborhood compatibility and that sort of thing. So I showed you this before, but this time I highlighted some of the key points. We did have a market viability study done, but if you look at the things I highlighted in red, this is the exact same thing I showed before, but just to give us a chance to focus on it better. The subject site is unlikely to develop as a retail destination site. It's a third-party, professional, retail economic analysis saying what I'm saying. It says, providing additional housing options for residents to drive retail development in existing retail corridors, meaning put residents there, put rooftops there, push the purchasing public to the stuff that really will work. And then at the bottom, it says a lot there, but the main thing it says, this project will generate additional tax revenues to the city as a result of the new rooftops are the key to making the really good retail work. I really, truly, with all my soul, believe that statement. It's a truism. We've built a lot of retail. We've built a lot of houses. We know that Retail can't go until it has enough houses to support it and make it work. This is more of a map version of some of the things I'm talking about. You saw this last time, and it basically shows how we've got low density to the north, we've got state land to the south with all those complicated wash and floodplain and drainage conditions. I need more houses in that to make retail work. I don't have houses, and I don't have a good path forward to see more houses going in to make that work. In addition, the real development pattern that's happening here in Apache Junction is really the new growth is all happening down south with the D.R. Horton Brookfield project, and it's going to, over the decades that come, it's going to be awesome. It's just so cool to see Apache Junction like top of the world right now. I just love it. But that growth is down there right now, not up here, and it's going to be a long, long time before it pushes its way up. But I wanted to talk about this in a little bit different context. I brought a different map. This is a map I got off the city website. It's called the Surrounding Agencies Land Ownership Map, and you can see the legend up there. It basically says light blue, state land. The yellow is Bureau of Land Management, and then sort of the darker yellow or the muted orange, I guess, is also Bureau of Land Management. Anything in Bureau of Land Management will not develop. That just doesn't happen. And then, of course, there's forest land, and we know that doesn't develop either. Anything in state land can develop, but state land is one of the hardest things to see develop. There's a lot of things that have to line up for state land to develop. You have to have really good geometry. You have to have really good density. And in this particular location, if you look north of where that red star, the red star is our project. If you look north of the red star, all that state land is kind of skinny, awkward geometry. It's going to be real hard for big, Brookfield, D.R. Horton type developer types to say, hey, let's go plant our flag there, because it makes a lot of sense. They're going to focus elsewhere. And at the end of the day, that's a low density part of town. You all know that way better than I do. For any kind of developer to come and say, hey, I'm going to go put 4 units per acre or 3 units per acre in there, that's not going to happen. Therefore, a large national developer is going to be deterred from doing that, and typically it is the large national developers that will come in and do those state land deals. So what this means is I've got what I like to call demographic black holes that I'm dealing with. If you go straight north of my project, I got about 4, maybe 5 square miles that's either existing low density, which is really a handicap to retail, very much so. It's been there for a long time, most of it, and none of it, we still haven't been able to see this site work yet. Then I've got all this BLM state land issue. Then, of course, forest land up there with the Superstition Mountain. That is a lot of trade area. That is a really big black hole. That is a very significant deterrent to getting any kind of new retail to work here. I want to do retail here. I would love to do retail here. Retail is worth 2 to 3 times as much money to me if I could do retail. But the reason I'm not doing retail is because I know from all these years of experience of doing retail why it won't work, and that any retail that ever would go there is going to struggle, it's going to flounder. And then, of course, this map also shows the same thing we've talked about to the south, and that's all the state land. And I'm going to get into that a little bit more as to why that is also, for the very, very long foreseeable future, also a demographic black hole. All right, let's talk about drainage and floodplain. Again, the star at the top is our project. As you go straight down Goldfield, obviously, I keep saying it, if I want retail to work at my site, I need rooftops. And if I'm going to get rooftops, it's not going to come from the north. We just talked about that. Too much weird geometry, too much low density, too much BLM, too much forest. I'll eventually get rooftops to the south, I think, but here's the problem. I pulled this off the Pinal County floodplain map. Look how much floodplain you're seeing there. All that yellow hash, that's floodplain. Okay? Here's what that translates to. In order to go develop in a floodplain area, massive amounts of money has to be spent to build a flood control infrastructure to make that become developable. City of Maricopa has been dealing with this for 30 years or so, ever since they became a city. For the past 20 years, they've been trying to figure out a solution. They finally came up with it a few years ago. $60 million price tag. I actually project that price tag ends up being closer to $100 million by the time they really get into doing it. In order to make a certain section of their town that's not that too dissimilar to what we're looking at here, to be able to go function and be able to develop. So if you think about the way state trust land develops, the big, huge D.R. Horton types, they come in and look at all their options. There's a lot of state trust land out there, a lot of state trust land. And the chances of them looking at that spot south of Goldfield and saying, yeah, man, I really want to go spend all that extra money to fix all that drainage problem down there so I can build more houses, as opposed to going down here by Idaho or Ironwood or any of the other places that they can be looking, very slim. So again, I need rooftops for commercial to work. That's the spot that I have to rely on for that to happen. And that is a massive, massive, I cannot understate how massive a barrier that is. Same exact image, just zoomed out some more. What's really going to happen is that kind of square, that square mile, that square 2 miles, whatever it is down there, that's going to get leapfrogged. Or it's going to get saved to the very, very end. And by the time, when I talk about the very end, we're talking 50 plus, 60 plus years from now when that happens. And so in the meantime, here we are without any new rooftop development coming to the Goldfield corridor to make our project viable. Went out and took some pictures. This is the kind of stuff we're dealing with out there. Obviously, there's a ton of flatland, desert land too, but there's a lot of washes going through there, and all this stuff is going to have to be dealt with. And one thing we see more and more of is more of a push to get away from sort of channelizing into these concrete, narrow channels, which is very efficient from an engineering standpoint, but to get to more open space preservation and natural wash corridor preservation and things like that, which all that means is less land will go to development, less density, less rooftops. So the wash situation alone, the floodplain situation alone, again, just to really hammer the point, all that stuff that's under the yellow hash, today you can't build there. Today you can't build there. And in order to get to where you could build there, massive amounts of figuring out and money and planning and infrastructure has to go to make that viable. Moving on. You saw this last time. If I try to put commercial here, let me think about what I'm competing with from a commercial standpoint, because commercial is competition. I'm competing for users, for tenants, for commercial buyers to come to my site instead of Idaho, instead of Ironwood, and someday we're going to have a north-south freeway to the east of us, and now I'm going to be competing with them as well. And let's say I actually do get some kind of commercial to go in there. Well, when these other, which I won't, but if the north-south freeway goes in, then you think they're going to want to stick around on that side, or do you think they're going to want to move over by the north-south freeway? They're going to want to go over there. So that's a challenge. Let's talk about that's all regional, macro stuff. Very local to the site, I do this all day long, every day. I draw site plans. I talk to tenants. I talk to retail brokers. And I try to figure out how to make retail sites work. I've probably got 15 retail projects under my management right now, under my control. And so I deal with this every day. So for me, it's very intuitive to look at that and go, man, that's a tough one to do. My frontage on Goldfield is narrow, too narrow to really be an awesome pad. That's a challenge. Then I got a gas station there that's going to block the visibility to any of my stuff that I would build behind there. And we saw what Kelsey, suggesting, proposing that would be retail is these lots behind there. That's a challenge. The geometry is all wonky, so now I've got weird geometry to try to fit my retail in there. And then I'm on a private drive that goes into a retirement community. Beautiful retirement community, one of the best ones I've ever seen. But those people really don't want to see that there. And now I've got this private drive that really shouldn't be taking that kind of intensity, trying to absorb all that retail traffic. So even if we had the rooftops, even if we had all the traffic counts that I would normally need to make this retail site work, the geometry alone of this site makes this site very, very challenging. And of all these other retail sites that I'm working on across the valley as well as in other states, geometry, site configuration, arterial visibility, traffic circulation, these are all things that we look very closely at. and the tenants look very closely at. And this site is handicapped in every one of those areas. It's a problem. All right, I mentioned before failed retail sites in other cities. You saw this before, but I went and highlighted and read some of the key phrases. The project in Chandler has dead retail, still sits empty. One of the top retailers in Chandler is basically saying, hey, we need more shoppers, not more shops, you know. Then the project in Gilbert that I mentioned, this is on Cooper Road, just south of Baseline, just south of the Coles there. Again, I've highlighted some things that it'd be worth calling out here. These retail shops sat for upwards of, I think, about 15 years, empty. Long-standing vacant stores. They're coming down, they came down, they've already come down to make way for apartment complexes. Why? Well, all those years, this is a town council member speaking, all those years that it was sitting empty, town wasn't getting any sales tax out of that. So this whole grand vision of getting sales tax didn't happen because it was a failed retail site. And down at the bottom it says, rather than see they'd rather see apartments than a vacant building. The project would benefit the area by helping the existing commercial. And that's really the key point that I want to make here. Rather than trying to make a very, very handicapped site work and hoping and praying it will when it won't, put rooftops there. That bread and butter of retail success. Put rooftops there to drive people to the stuff that is going to work. We got a long uphill battle to get Idaho Road to light up with the kind of retail that it needs. Huge battle. I would say the most important thing the city of Apache Junction can do to achieve what it absolutely needs to achieve from a retail sales tax standpoint is light up Idaho Road. The most important thing you can do to light up Idaho Road is bring more rooftops. And I'm going to get into that. But before I do, let's finish this out. I sat with one of the council members in the town of Gilbert who in 2008 took as a point of pride that he, quote unquote, he used this word. I forced that developer to put retail there. And he said he couldn't do it, didn't want to do it, but I forced him to do it. And like I kind of jokingly said last time, some bank was dumb enough to lend that developer the money and look what they built. Well, that turned out to be a huge mistake. And I haven't talked to that council member since, but I wonder how proud he is of, that I forced them to do it thing. And so Gilbert forced this land to be retail even when reality and experts said it wouldn't work. It was a huge mistake for Gilbert. It was a huge mistake for the land. And look at this bottom point. Years and years and years of lost residential opportunity to what? Drive sales tax revenue to the other retail sites. Those are shoppers that could have been paying retail sales tax dollars into the city system all those years, didn't do it because it just sat stagnant and unleveraged. Now, these are pictures that I took literally 2 or 3 weeks ago. Those empty shops that were an eyesore, that they were a blight, they were a problem. So they finally knocked them down. The mistake became obvious, and now apartments are going up. And so you're going to see some new life coming into this area because you have new rooftops, new shops. So that's the point that I keep trying to make is rather than try to get a difficult, challenged, handicapped site, hope and pray, cross your fingers that maybe it might work, leverage that as an asset, as a resource to make the stuff that you need to have work become more viable. This is all stuff you saw last time. A lot of this stuff I've already repeated tonight, so I'm not going to go through it again. But the most important thing the city of Apache Junction can do for its retail aspirations is to light up Idaho Road. And there's definitely opportunity on Iron Road as well, but Idaho is kind of the brass ring there. You've seen this also, repeating what I've said, but I want to get to this. I understand, I wasn't here, I was at Disneyland with my grandkids, by the way, and that was awesome. 2 weeks ago when you saw this presentation, except that it wiped me out, staff did this presentation, I've read the letter, and I agree with the letter. It's a great letter, and it basically tells you and City Council, hey, there's some challenges in the city of Apache Junction in the way that the retail is allocated. That's true. There's a lot of retail, commercial, that's in outdated locations, awkward configuration, outdated configuration, weird geometry. They say in the letter, and I agree, freeway interchanges and major arterials are typically ideal for commercial hubs. That's true. That's absolutely true. Well, we've got a freeway interchange. Why am I pushing back so hard on doing retail there is the obvious question. Well, I've told you all the reasons. You have to have all your ducks in a row to make a retail site. Freeway interchange is a huge advantage, huge. But when you don't have all your other ducks in a row, and you don't have the rooftops driving that for whatever bizarre set of circumstances, in our case, I got low density in state land and BLM to the north, washes to the south, I got all these things, all these strikes against me. That's why mine doesn't work. And so specific to the Goldfield site, yeah, we got a freeway interchange, but because of all these reasons, in spite of it being on a freeway, it doesn't work. So you do need to look, as staff has recommended, at the general plan, at the retail configuration, at your retail strategy. And as you dig into that, there's gonna be a lot of cool things you're gonna discover about opportunities and things that you can leverage. With my expertise in retail, I can just tell you now, that Idaho corridor is awesome. That's gonna be great when it lights up. But I'll also tell you that Idaho suffers from many of the same challenges that we suffer from, 100%. And so we need to be figuring out how to solve those problems and figuring out how to leverage our site into solving those problems. So let me tell you what I mean by that. Look at this. This is a comparison of mostly Idaho Road, Ironwood to a degree. As you go south on Ironwood, I think things will open up, and if ever that golf course, converts to something, then there's a lot of opportunity there too. But, I don't know anything about that, so I'm probably talking out of turn. Yeah, I hear some good laughing there. But really, I'm talking about Idaho. Idaho is awesome. You've got state land on one side, you got U-Haul on the other side. North of the freeway, you got state land. That is a phenomenal intersection with a lot of opportunity to get the critical mass, the awesome geometry, the proper circulation for traffic, okay? But you think about the challenges that Idaho faces today. Some of the challenges are the exact same challenges I'm dealing with at Goldfield. They don't have the rooftops to the south like I don't have the rooftops to the south. They're waiting on the rooftops to the south just like I'm waiting on the rooftops to the south. They're probably decades away from those rooftops coming in. Do you think any major retailer like Vestar, who I've done partnerships with, or Macerich, who I've done partnerships with, do you think those guys are going to come in and spend millions and tens of millions of dollars buying that state trust land on Idaho Road to go build a bunch of shops when there's no houses to the south? They're not going to do it. What do they need? They need rooftops. If you look at the Idaho Road situation, as you go north, they have similar situations to us. I think ours are more exacerbated to the north. We have more of a low-density problem, but there's definitely a low-density problem there. But as you go through the rest of this list, the stuff in green that's not a problem, do they have a big problem with the floodplains to the south? No. Are they competing with better sites? As far as Apache Junction goes, they are the best site, so no. Now, they are competing with Signal Butte, which is Mesa. That's a problem. But, that's something we all just, band together and figure out how to go compete. Are they dealing with awkward geometry? No. Are they dealing with private driveways that break it up and make it awkward to go develop? No. Are they faced with a situation where they can't create a critical mass where they become a destinational retail site as opposed to this kind of orphan child little no man's land, one-off little thing, like 5 acres, whatever. Whatever we do there, it's going to be kind of a little no man's land for retail. It's just not going to be a thing of critical mass to be a destinational thing. Do they have the Dolce Vita problem where the residents next door really don't want all that activity and intensity driving up and down their private drive? And are they surrounded by seasonal residents? This is a major, major, major problem for us. It's actually a major problem for Apache Junction in general, but it's very concentrated on Goldfield. I think that the Idaho Road site has this problem. We have it worse. Half of a huge portion of our residents who would be those shoppers, they're gone half the year. That is massive. So when you look at here's the way a retailer thinks. They go, and the first question they ask before they look at a site, they say, if the site's here, draw me concentric rings around that site and tell me the population numbers. Then they look at like income levels and other demographics and stuff, but the number one thing they look at is population. And if they draw a ring around it, and they either don't see their target number there, or they don't see that the path of growth is going to push that target number there, they don't go there. Take a Costco, which is a huge example. They will not go until they hit certain thresholds like that. But the same thing applies for Starbucks. Same thing applies for Whataburger. They all have their metric. They all have their formula for where they're going to go. So if you look at our situation, I've done it. I've looked at the concentric rings. We're in a tough spot. 1 mile, 3 mile, 5 miles, they're all tough. But I have to divide all those by 2 because of the seasonal nature of the residents. Okay, Apache Junction needs retail. You believe it, I believe it, staff believes it, council believes it. It's true, and it needs to happen. And I would love to be part of making that happen and partnering with you and supporting you in that. Whether it's future retail development that I do, which is absolutely in the cards for me, or whether it's my current project bringing rooftops to make your future retail become more viable. Apache Junction is kind of in a unique situation right now. It's kind of a Tell of Two Cities situation, isn't it? Now, I am thrilled to death to see Apache Junction top of the world right now. It's just as cool as can be to see all this stuff happening. But the nature of the geometry of how this thing is working out, all the new growth and development is starting at the very southwest corner of the city. So the established corridors up along the trail and up along 60, there is some new growth opportunity in there. You've seen a few things happen. You've improved some things. Some new things are coming, but not at that high volume intensity that we're seeing in the south. So last year you had around 900 residential permits. That is awesome. You realize that puts you on par with Queen Creek, with Mesa, and with some of the Gilbert. You're actually beating Gilbert right now. Did you know that? Do you know how cool that is? That's just cool. It's awesome. But 70% of that is down in the south because that's where all the activity is. And while you're going to see like Century Homes and Lennar Homes and a few things happen to the north, that pipeline is going to kind of wind its way down. There has to be substantial new residential development in the northern part of Apache Junction in order to get Idaho Road to light up. Until it does, Idaho Road is going to stay exactly what it is. State trust land desert. State trust land desert. And then secondary and tertiary sites, and we're not even that good, like Goldfield, are just really, really going to flounder. So I got this cute little chicken and egg thing. You know what it means. What comes first, the chicken or egg? Easy, rooftops. Rooftops is what comes first. Okay, so there's the Tell of Two Cities. What I'm telling you is North Apache Junction is every bit as important as South Apache Junction because it's all one city. And as far as the retail sales tax picture, you need to light up that northern tier just as much as you need to light up the southern tier. And bringing rooftops and a diversity of rooftops, like the project we're proposing, is key to that. Trying to make sites that are otherwise way too handicapped, which is our situation, just isn't gaining anybody anything. I think I've said most of this. Let me see if there's anything in here I haven't said. No, I've said it all. Other than something everybody knows about real estate, location is everything. But that quote right above, the most important thing Apache Junction can do to make Idaho and Ironwood viable is to provide more rooftops to North Apache Junction, especially along the 60 with projects like what we're proposing. Retail must have enough year-round, underlined, highlighted, bold, year-round rooftops or it will not come. Reality planning must be reality-driven. It has to be reality-driven. Just hoping and waiting for retail just isn't enough. Just putting a thing on a map and saying, man, we would love to see a restaurant there. We would love to see something there. That is not enough. I'm in the business. I know what it takes to get these projects underwritten, to get them financed, to get them built. And if I don't have the demographics, which means rooftops, to make a project work, it is not going to happen. It's not going to come out of the ground. It's going to sit and flounder and just waste everybody's time. And now it becomes a very wasted resource. You need those rooftops because those rooftops are going to push dollars into Idaho Road so that someday a big retailer like Vestar or Macerich, both who are close friends of mine, partners of mine, can go there, okay, now it's time. Let's go build something cool in Apache Junction. So, retail land on a freeway, interchange, we all know instinctively, we talked about it earlier, it's awesome to do it, and if it works, and I've talked about why it doesn't, it's worth 2 to 3 times as much money to me. Why in the world would I stand here and tell you, please, please, please don't make me do retail when it's worth 2 to 3 times as much money to me to do retail? It's because I'm dead serious. It's because I'm dead serious about what I'm saying. If it did work, we wouldn't be here asking for that. We know retail. We've done every kind of retail you can imagine. Hotel, done it. Restaurant, done it. All that stuff you see around Santan Village, done it. That new Cooper's Hawk restaurant you see just opened up there, done it. That's done it all. If retail was viable here, we'd be doing it. We'd be making a lot more money than we're talking about right now. But it's not. So I'd ask you to consider in your motion to advance this forward so that these rooftops can go feed the other very critically important aspirations of the city of Apache Junction of getting those retail sales tax.
Some of us have prostate cancer. We can't wait until whatever.
But don't handicap this site with the need to put retail that just isn't going to work. It does significant harm to us. It does significant harm to the project. It does little, if no, benefit to the city because it's so long, if ever, that the city ever sees the benefit. And it really is not good for the neighbors there. That's not what they want to see in Dolce Vita. So if you have any more questions, glad to answer. With that, I will, you got a question?
Oh, I got a few
Oh, you bring it.
questions. Is my mic on? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
What's the magic rooftop number?
It's different for every user. I
Well,
don't,
in our situation, what would you say because you've mentioned rooftop a lot of times. What's the magic number?
I did go and look at, so Goldfield, if you take Goldfield as the center, I'm trying to remember the numbers off the top of my head. Goldfield numbers are probably about 10%, maybe 15% of what it would be at, say, Cooper and Baseline in Gilbert, okay? And so if, my answer to you would be, it would need to be 3, 4, 5 times as much as it is right now, not counting for the seasonal factor, the fact that half the residents, go away for half the year.
Well, that's always going to be.
That's always going to be, but I have to deal with it. I have to get
So-
a project financed with that reality in mind.
There's also right now over 16 builds going on. So that's approximately 32 plus rooftops coming in on the north side.
So how many projects did you say?
16 to 19 builds. So you're looking at 32 plus rooftops already coming in on this side.
That's great. You need to do that.
Right, so see,
Awesome.
we're getting rooftops on this
Absolutely.
side.
That's fantastic.
And then you keep saying you love retail, and you keep saying Idaho and Ironwood. Why don't you do retail and just kind of leave?
When I get enough rooftops, I will.
Well, so 3,200 plus
It's not
isn't
enough yet. It's not
rooftops?
enough yet. You need.
But you're only going to do 271 in Silverite. So how is that going to make
Every
that
drop
big of a
counts.
difference?
Every little bit counts. Right now, it's doing nothing for you. Now it could do 270 something for you. It matters. Every little bit matters. Right now, it's doing nothing. Okay. But good question on, what's the magic number? It's actually different for every use and every user. And I could actually come back at another time and really spell it out. But the bottom line is right now you have, certainly at Goldfield, and even at Idaho, you have a fraction of the demographic that you need to have any kind of substantial retail work. And to make that change, just bring more rooftops.
Well, I'd love to see you do the retail versus the multifamily units.
Yeah, well, I'd love to do that on Idaho Road.
That's
when
what
I
I'm
see
talking
more,
about.
when I see more rooftops, coming that way. So, but thank you very much.
I have another question. I believe I asked at the last meeting. There's no way you guys would consider, because it's a beautiful project, you guys have done awesome work. Retail, as it seems, maybe 50 years might be decent there, right? But you wouldn't be willing to take this away from multifamily residential to turn it into more of like a single family use where residents can have the vested interest and own those houses or those condos or those townhomes. I feel like that would be a much better use and fit our community, especially in that area, a little better.
Yeah, that's a good question, and that's the thing that comes up a lot, because, you know, people feel that, and there's really valid truth to what you're saying, that there's a certain amount of ownership and pride of ownership that comes with owning a property. You know, from our standpoint, the fact of the matter is you can actually get more units and more density when you do a rental project. So in terms of bringing, the one thing I haven't talked about today is the housing affordability issue, which is a massive, massive, massive issue. We live in a world where 5, 6, 7 years ago, the starter home was $300,000. And today, I walked the models at Century, and they're still sub 500. But you go in, which is awesome. But you go anywhere else in town, your starter home in the valley, I should say, $600,000, $700,000. So the problem is incomes haven't gone up, you know, enough, and so to match those kind of pricing increases, and so it's a lot harder and harder and harder for younger families to be able to afford that kind of thing. What you're talking about, a rental product is an important part of the overall housing mix, especially when we have an affordability crisis, what we have. But, you know, from our standpoint, we see this as a valuable resource to bring good housing here. The nice thing about rental properties is that they get maintained by a central management company. So they get maintained much better, much cleaner over longer periods of time. Some of those townhouse projects that you can see, plenty get managed well, but plenty 20 years from now, they start to see some decline because they rely on individual owners to manage and maintain, as opposed to, you know, a central property ownership. So it's just our preference to do that. There's good reasoning behind that. There's value in what you're saying. I don't disagree at all with what you're suggesting. This is just what makes sense for us.
Hi, Jason.
Hi.
First of all, I very much understand and appreciate your presentation.
Speak up, please.
I said I understand and appreciate his presentation. I was wishing, as I was sitting here, that we had that presentation when I was on the council about 20 years ago when we started looking at this kind of thing, and we didn't. So you missed out, we missed out. Okay. Now, I truly do not have a problem with the southern portion of this particular project. I think it's beautiful. I think you will be renting mostly to older people. I think they will be just part-time in our community. And it's really not a property that's conducive to children. As I'm looking through the green sites are very nice, but they're not children's green sites. They're adults' green sites. Adults with dogs, thank you. I appreciate that. My biggest problem is I don't want to keep amending the general plan. I'm tired of it. We have amended it over and over and over again. Rather than amending it, I would prefer to go back to it and look at this, as you say, with a more realistic eye so that we wouldn't run into this on a continuous basis. I think that our staff has brought a good thing that we can compromise here, in as much as they're wanting to keep some lots as commercial lots. I understand what you're saying. I do. And I agree with what you're saying, and I think you know that. But I think that it is a good compromise to keep a couple of lots up there as possible commercial eventually, and do the rest as residential. And that's just where I'm sitting. And we do need to remember that Idaho is a state road. So we have a few other problems other than lighting it up.
I'll add it to
There's
my
a
list.
few other things
Add that to
that
the
we
list.
have to think about when we look
The
at
city doesn't
Idaho
control the road
Road.
in the right of way.
Yeah. We can't even, we fought for years to get a frickin' stoplight there because it was a state road. You know, we had to have X number of accidents before we had to kill a few people, and then they finally gave us a stoplight. I'm sorry, that's probably gross, but the way it looked to us. But I thank you for your presentation. I thank you for the information. I think it's invaluable. I truly do. I think I'd like to have a copy of your presentation.
You're certainly welcome.
But, so that's kind of the way I feel. And one other question, what are these going to rent for, do you know?
Well, we don't know yet. It'll be market rents. It's definitely not any kind of subsidized rents. What, I mean,
So it's not something that's going to help our folks that are on limited income.
no, but it's so hard to provide that. That's
I
almost impossible to
understand
provide
that.
unless you're
It's
really doing truly federally
expensive and-
subsidized, whatever, and
I got
that's a whole nother can of worms. If you-
Yes, it is. I understand that, but I have to ask.
But I will tell you,
Develop-
though, we didn't talk at all about the affordability crisis. Go read any publication from any state, from anywhere in this nation for the past 2 years, and you'll see the affordability crisis is one of the most substantial
Absolutely.
housing affordability crisis. And there's a lot of reasons for that. And there's a lot of people trying to blame certain people. There's plenty of blame to go
Oh,
around.
there's plenty of blame to go everywhere.
But one of the biggest problems certainly is supply, lack of supply. So bringing more supply to the market is one of the best ways to offset that issue. So, but going back to what you said, I feel the frustration that you're having about going time and time again to amend the general plan and kind of chip away. That's what you're feeling. You're
That's,
feeling
I
chipping
am.
away.
I
get
am
it.
feeling that. I was here when we built up this general plan. I was part of that. And at the time, it was viable. But as we have grown a little bit, we now understand things like state land is darn tough. And we've seen it.
That's understating it.
Time and time again. We know that the National Forest isn't going to give anything up. We know that probably even the little ADOT place there is probably not going to give anything up. So we know that we're squeezed. We're squeezed in this little place where we can't go any further unless a large developer comes along and wants to put thousands of units out there and can deal with the state land process.
Which
and
has
get
happened
through it.
for you
Yeah,
guys.
it's happening.
Just south.
But that is not, it is in the Apache Junction city limits, but where are those people going to shop, Jason?
Down there,
They're
at
going
East
to
Mark.
shop in Queen Creek, in Mesa,
Yes, they
They're
will.
not going to come up here.
You, and then I'm going to join the team and say, we need to go solve for that. And the way you solve for that is you've got to bring all the parts and pieces of a city together
Absolutely.
to make it
And
work.
we need rooftops, and I understand that. That is the key to commercial. But I still think we have a decent way to go to it with,
I would
a
just
few
say
lots.
this to you. I totally empathize with your frustration about the chipping away effect. And I know you know this, but this conversation that you and I are having right now, I've had that conversation dozens and dozens of times across the East Valley, across the Valley in general, in Utah, in California, in Idaho, these other places.
we all made the same mistake?
No, here's what happens. And Arizona's not the only state with this there's a structural problem when you incentivize a city to rely on sales tax to drive its operating income because it makes them make decisions that don't necessarily make sense from a planning or market viability standpoint. That's a mistake. That's a structural defect. But it is what you have, is the deck you were dealt. And so, my answer to that is, I've had this conversation many, many times with so many people, and I'm sincere about wanting to be part of the solution, and the people who are on your side of the table who are trying to protect those retail sales tax dollars are very sincere about that side of the problem. Well, the reality is, if a site is just going to sit vacant,
Right.
or if it's going to get built and then just flounder and never produce, who won by that? And actually, not only did we lose, and we lost actually kind of big when that happened, but the city loses because our project is that much less, that much fewer residents, that much less of a thing, that much less of a critical mass to make work. And so I support you and I empathize with you in the frustrations that you feel. I would just ask you, and all the city for that matter, always look at these things location specific. It's tempting to take this broad, sweeping, general rule we want to preserve every last drop of retail across the city, but of all the land uses there are, and I've done them all. I've even done a landfill for crying out loud. I've done them all. Retail is the most location-specific, location-sensitive land use that there is, and the most demographic-sensitive land use there is. So, I don't know if you know the phrase, push a noodle up a hill. You ever heard that phrase? Rather than push a noodle up a hill here, trying to make something work that's never going to work, just, you know, because I'm in the business, I'm able to see it, like, immediately and instinctively. People aren't in the business. I totally understand why it's not totally obvious to them, but I can just see that floundering. So if this thing goes forward and we're required to go do commercial there, we'll kind of dork around and mess around and goof around, and we'll scratch our head, and I'll call my broker and spend hours and weeks and months on the phone with them. What are we doing? What are we doing? It'll be the same broker who's doing my Santan Village stuff, so he'll be the A-team, okay? And then after a while, we're going to, oh, man, this is killing us. We don't have the rooftops. And then I'm going to come crawling back here and say, oh, please, we've been trying, but this is not working. Can we have some relief?
And maybe by that time, we'll have gone back through the general plan and changed it.
But is that good planning to make me go suffer for that many years and stall out and handicap a project for that many years while we do that? It's not. It's not good planning. But thank you for your thoughts. I really, really do appreciate that.
I have a question dealing with, if you're forced to use 5 acres, is that even the best 5 acres? And because also looking at the lots that would be designated, you have, what, 2 lots that are gonna even be hidden back there further. Will that be able to be part of this housing unit?
It's the least worst.
It's the least worst?
Least worst.
Do you have any conceptions of what that would look like?
Actually, when Kelsey put up the site plan, I don't know if we can pull that up again, but I mean.
Because I mean, obviously, we're gonna lose some amenities out of this master.
I'd have to go figure out how to rejigger my other thing. We'll figure that out. The real issue is I have to figure out how to, I mean, one of those buildings was a hotel, wasn't it? And then you got these little shops that kind of line up. I mean, it would basically be some variation of that. The size and configuration would change. I'd have to look at my parking. Getting your parking ratios are critically important with retail. You blow that, and then you really blow your retail.
But what about like, because there's 2 lots still left that would be changed to residential?
Those are on the other side of the wash. They sit in between the wash and Dolce Vita entrance.
Right.
Okay, let me tell you what. You try to put retail there, that's a train wreck.
No, I understand. No, I understand that. My question is, how would that change the housing?
Oh, yeah, we would still do the same housing back in there, and we would just have to integrate with the rest of our project. But when I say by making this 5 acres go to retail, it actually kind of handicaps the residential project too, because now it's kind of, broken up and awkward and weird, and we'll do it because that's what.
That was my point I was trying to get at.
Yeah, it's a very good point then.
Is this gonna make the house, how's this gonna end?
It's a very good point. It makes it wonky. And that's a very technical official term, wonky. Any other questions?
But it is probably less wonky on the north side of Resort Boulevard than it would be 5 acres along Goldfield. Which would
Yes, that
be
is
the
100%
better
true.
commercial
Yeah,
aspect.
I'm begging you, please don't make me do this, but if I have to do this. And by the way, we haven't even talked about, stuff like signage and things like that. I mean, if I'm having I will be desperate if I have to figure out how to make retail work on any one of those pads. But we're gonna need to have another conversation about signage and all kinds of things to make sure that I am not backed into a way worse corner than I already will be. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all nits and gnats. If you don't have the rooftops, you're just toast. That's just the reality. All right?
So, following on the question, would the 5 acres even be developed as commercial, or would they just sit?
They're gonna sit. They're gonna sit. Who won? Nobody. I know who lost.
Yeah.
We actually both lost because we had an opportunity we could do together to help contribute to the overall problem, and we didn't take full advantage of it. That's it. Anything else? Thank you. I'll let Greg continue.
Yeah, beat that.
I get to follow that, right? Well, I'll promise you it'll be a lot shorter.
Thank you.
No, obviously, this was the crux of, the discussion we had to have here tonight. I'm happy to go into the compatibility, and I'll just touch on a few issues. We talked about the other uses. One of the reasons we're picking multifamily is because it's a great transitional use. We have a freeway here. We have obstacles to single-family development. Not many people want to spend $400,000 or $500,000 back into a freeway. This property isn't conducive to lot configurations in public streets. So your efficiency on a single-family design is going to go way down, whether it's a condo or single-family detached home. And so the density will go down, and that's going to elevate the prices to a point where it just makes it very, very difficult to sell. So from my standpoint, a land planning principle, when we look at appropriate land uses, multifamily makes a lot more sense because of the size, because of the shape, because of the freeway, and because of the adjacent uses to that. And so if we look at just the compatibility, we've talked about traffic, noise, and light. I know if it's commercial, that's not a consideration. Those are going to be considerably higher, but the neighbors do care, and I think you'll hear some people speak to that tonight about their concerns about those issues. And that's why our project does make a lot of sense here. It's not a traditional apartment project where you're going to have high amounts of traffic, high amounts of families, et cetera, lights and noise. Our project's really designed to compartmentalize those and to make those not an issue for the adjacent residents. The one issue we can't address to their satisfaction is going to be height, and we talked about the view and how our project impacts that. But just a reminder that the current zoning allows for 45 feet. Even if we just blanket zone this B1 and just had a commercial site without the current zoning, it still allows 35 feet by right. The R2 allows 40 feet. So our project at 30 feet is significantly reduced upon what we can do today and upon what we would do if this was just a regular commercial property. I'll show those up there again. I added the 35 feet, which is the bottom line, just to show the impact of the blocking the view for those different height categories. From a density standpoint, we're coming in at 15 units, which is equivalent to Golden Vista to our west, a little bit less than Desert Sun, and we are higher than Dolce Vita, but it is all consistent with what we're doing. Because we are trying to create rooftops, we're trying to find that balance between density but also compatibility, and we think that our product is the compatible difference, and mostly because of the product itself. It is single-family looking in nature. It is attached garages. It is designed to minimize the amount of families, more what we call DINKs, if you've heard that term before, dual income, no kids, which is kind of what you're looking for when you want to have sales tax, people with disposable income. And you do that through floor plan design, you do it through architecture design, and you do it through amenity design. That targets specifically those types of folks, and that's what this project is designed for. So this slide is new. This just looks at a couple of the questions that were asked of us, some by the commission, but most, I think, by the neighbors. And I'll just quickly go through them. One question is in regards to water. We did reach out to the city engineer. Obviously, the site's zoned for commercial today, which has a much higher water use than residential. They're not concerned about capacity. They even said that whenever something gets built here, it is going to help with the flow of the water because the more times you loop it, the more stable the water pressures become. Even though we don't expect to have school-age children here, we did reach out to the school district because it was brought up. The school district said that they would absolutely serve this project, and they do have bus service able to come down here. Road maintenance, the road is private. Right now it's a shared cost between ourselves and the owners of Dolce Vita, and it'll remain that way. If this does go commercial, that's one of our concerns, is now we're bringing thousands of cars onto a private road, and so we would probably want to revisit that in the future if it goes that direction. But right now, that's who owns and maintains that roadway. There was a question of this area being age-restricted historically, and that's just not the case from what we found. This property was actually zoned residential before it was converted to the hospital use. That was the designation for it back then. So, and that didn't have any kind of age restriction. So as far as we've looked into it, that was never the plan for this area. It was converted to commercial for the doctor's concept, but ideally before that, it was identified as residential as a long-term land use. Then the grade difference question, our site is considerably higher, about 3 to 4 feet in some locations, but we're gonna have to obviously regrade the entire site. We're not allowed to let water drain from our site off our property into the street. In fact, we have to take the street water in. So along our west boundary, we're going to have to be regrading the site so that we're more equal. Right now, we are quite a bit higher than them. And then the last question or concern raised was just traffic. We know the Renaissance Festival creates horrific traffic. That's a regional issue. That's something that's going to impact this project no matter what it is. What we've shown is that our proposal significantly reduces traffic over what it could be, and that's why we think it makes sense for this project. So with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions, and Jason is more than happy to speak again if you'd like.
Anyone else have any questions?
I'll ask the same question. Like I said, it's a beautiful project. I would be totally down to change it from commercial to residential, but I would like to see it be for ownership. And right now, single family, yeah, right now in AJ, I've seen stuff, I've been in AJ pretty much my whole life. I've seen this city change over the course of my life. You could put a 30-year-old dilapidated single wide on a little plot of land and somebody would pay $300,000 for that and leave that trailer there. I know people would buy homes there because there's also that development, Ironwood South, kind of hidden in the back there that backs up to the freeway. That place is beautiful. All those homes sold. They will sell. You know, we have like 10 apartment complexes being built in the city right now. We need home ownership ability, whether it's a condo, single family standing houses, which probably wouldn't work there just because of the layout. But your project, just the way it is as a condo thing, would be beautiful right there.
Yeah, and Commissioner, understand, you know, the concern. I think when we look at valuations, we have to look at not just what's, you know, Lennar selling up the street or some of the vacant lots, but we have to look at what's coming down the pipe, and we have to compete against a larger region such as what's happening in Superstition Vista. And I think when it comes to people choosing to spend, you know, $400,000 or $500,000 in a house, our site is less competitive than a lot of the newer communities being built. And that's how we look at it. So could it work as a condo project? Absolutely. And I'm sure we could sell them, but I don't know if that amount we could sell them for would be profitable for the project. And that's obviously the business we're in. And so that's why we've chosen to go down this path. But we've also chosen to go down a path that does address affordability, because this is even though you have many multifamily projects, this one's different than those. It offers a different style of living that is more single-family in nature. So you either have people that could afford a single-family house that don't want the responsibility of it, or that they can't get the financing for it because interest rates are so high. This gives them an opportunity to be in a single-family type of environment, but be in a rental situation. So we think it still meets the demand that the city has, even though it's not the one you...
Because I also worry, because we're about to lose our rental tax that we can collect. And that's huge. You know, and obviously, the city of AJ doesn't get property tax. People pay property tax, but the city doesn't get any. And there was discussions about addressing that, and you know, instead of putting it up and letting people decide if that's what we should do or even look at it, we're not doing that. But eventually, one day, that's probably going to be looked at, and having homes there that are going to bring revenue to the city outside sales tax, because the sales tax will go away when that happens, for the most part. It won't be as high as it is now. And I think long-term for AJ, that's what's going to be most beneficial for our city in surviving and growing.
Speak that, go ahead.
Very briefly, one other thought, excuse me, regarding your question. It's totally valid. I don't argue at all with what you're saying and why you're saying it. Here's the thought, though. Home ownership communities, whether they're townhouse or single-family detached or whatever, really need to be in larger communities than what we have here. We basically have 16 acres buildable. That's really not large enough to make a single-family for-purchase kind of project really work that well. In this business, whether it's townhouse, single-family, we like to see a lot bigger projects. Or if it is a townhouse project, have it be part of another master plan community where it kind of integrates and there's some shared amenities and different things.
Well, yeah, we have three of them. At least I can think off the top of my head. We have at least three similar things. We have one on San Marcos and Broadway. We have Quail Creek. I believe those are owners, units. And then we have, what was the other one? I was just thinking, right across the street on the corner.
Yeah, they work, but I'm telling you as an ideal, and especially when you back up to a freeway, which is the case here, as an ideal, this is a little on the small side, and because it's next to the freeway, really more conducive to a rental product. So, but the size of a community and the kind of the critical mass of a community really does matter to making these single family for purchase projects really work, and that's absolutely a factor in this, so, but just something to think about.
Well, and there's also no guarantee that Silver Ray will not be seasonal. You get 271 rentals, what's gonna stop, like I said last time, somebody from Idaho coming, living here for 5 months and spending the other 8 months in Idaho. So we still lose 8 months of tax, of revenue.
And that could be, the homes aren't, I mean, all the homes have stairs. So we're not expecting a large portion of senior housing because of that. In fact, some of the floor plans, all the bedrooms are upstairs.
So
So
you're gonna be doing fair or median market value for rents? It sounds like you're going more towards median and above, right? But fair market value or median market value?
yeah, I don't know.
There's a difference between fair and median. Median is higher.
Obviously it'll be driven by the market. And if that's a median price, then it is. And if it's a fair price, then it's what it is.
Anyone else, any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna propose a 5-minute break so everybody can use the restroom that needs to. Anybody with prostate cancer, I want to feel safe. And I'm gonna adjourn it. I call back to order the Planning and Zoning meeting this evening. At this time, we're going to start the public hearings section, or the public section. I now open the public portion of the hearing. Those that wish to speak, please come up to the microphone, state your name, address. You will have 3 minutes to speak.
Good evening. I'm Tom Lang. I'm a resident of Golden Vista. I'll be okay, by the way. Thanks for your concern. Anyway, I represent a good number of Golden Vista residents. You've probably seen our petition letter where I submitted 170 signatures on my March letter of Golden Vista residents who are opposed to the two-story Silver Ray project. This two-story proposed development would be plopped down right in between our park and Dolce Vita. So on 3 sides of the proposed development, it's over 55 single-story, mostly owner-occupied homes. And City of Apache Junction limits these homes in Arizona rooms and casitas to 20-foot heights. Now, why all of a sudden should the zoning be changed to allow for a 30-foot height, which would block our views of the Superstition Mountains? And if you've also seen my recent letter of April 15th, have most of you seen that, where I talked about how owner-occupied homes are, the communities are more civic-minded, and our own Golden Vista Resort on an annual basis donates approximately $22,000 to area concerns. I don't think a rental community is going to do that. What I'd like to propose is zoning that 8-acre parcel that runs parallel to Highway 60, all commercial, and then the other 10-acre parcel right across Goldfield Road from us, that could be the single-story residential. Also in my letter, I proposed that that 8-acre parcel could be a nice development of commercial, retail, restaurants, kind of on an old 1880s old western town, Goldfield Gulch, because it is in a bloody ditch, you know. It would not be good for any kind of residential there. It was just within a month that a car or some vehicle rolled off the freeway and burst into flame, and there was a lot of black smoke. Anyway, in my letter, I talked about all the different small retail concerns that could be on that Goldfield Gulch 1880s town. And regarding the wash, I would think it would be simple enough to manufacture you know, just a platform bridge that would take cars from in front of, let's say, Goldfield Gulch, Old Town, to the back part for parking and to access, let's say, the third block. Anyway, I'm hoping that would be a good compromise where it would create a nice commercial corridor along Highway 60, along the false-fronted facades of this western town. Beads of neon would pull in a lot of traffic on Highway 60. Already we have 1,100 homes, rooftops. Dolce Vita probably has at least 800. And even if the proposed development is single story, they'd have another 500. So I think that'd be about 2,500 rooftops.
Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to wrap it up. Your time's expired.
And that would be a good, you know, neighborhood place for us to bike to, walk to, scooter to, for all these different things that we like, rather than have to get in our car for it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Who would like to go next?
Donna Carr, Apache Junction resident. I look at the fact that I was told before that the areas have already been zoned for years, and there's a lot of changing that keeps getting taken. Like, as for instance, if you look at Old West Highway and Tomahawk, you're putting in apartments over there too, 3 stories. And I don't think that we want to be known as a transient city. And transient is anybody that doesn't own property. People can move in and out of apartments anytime that they want. I was told that it was a transient move way back when. And when he talks about the wash and the flood plains and stuff like that, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't we digging a big old giant enormous ditch for a water catch or off the Goldfield Wash to catch the water to stop that flooding from down in that direction? Plus, the other thing that I'm looking at too is when you talk about, we do deal with a lot of snowbirds out here. We deal with a lot of seniors out here. I think families matter. And I think that more places need to be put in for families that are owned, not rented. And I don't know about anybody else, but whenever I've gone cross-country, traveling through any town, any city, most of the commercial area is by the freeway. So you can pull off the freeway and stop and do a little shopping right there. You know, it's not houses that's directly off the freeway. It's commercial areas. And I guess I'm against putting in more transient-type living in Apache Junction. I mean, we invite that. We invite a lot of crackhead stuff. I know I'm dealing with that part myself in a different part of town. But I think that we need to either one, maybe the zoning commission needs to get together and say, okay, well, if we're going to rezone this area, let's rezone this area and decide it for once and for all what it's going to be instead of nitpicking little pieces out and saying, we're going to stick something else in here. You know what? I mean, it's commercial, but that's okay. We'll put in apartments. I'm just saying, take a look at it. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next? Come on up. You don't have to wait to be called up. You don't have to wait.
Michael David Myers, 852 Aquamarine, Golden Vista RV Resort. I've been listening to all of the details that this group has presented, and they've all presented it to Kelsey, the planner, for the last year and a half. And my hope is that, you know, I can get 4 of you to agree on one of the 3 that she presented as an option, and I would recommend the 5-acre commercial, and then the rest, the high-density residential, and I would prefer 1-story to 2-story. Follow the money. You ever heard that before? You know, these guys here have money. They've got all these people that could put these presentations together and spend the money for this marketing study and all of that. But they've also got a for sale sign, right, you know, on it, what would be the proposed commercial area. So maybe they're trying to find somebody else develop, since Mr. Barney isn't interested in developing it commercially, that somebody else would develop that. I guess that's it for now. I think I'll hold off. I got 2 more minutes, is that right? Or
Yeah,
one?
you got to speak now. You're not coming back up.
Not coming back up, okay. All right. Well, thank you for listening, and hopefully 4 of you will support number 1.
All right, thank you. Who would like to go next? Come on, don't be shy. You all came here.
Hi, I'm Polly Walker. I'm also in Golden Vista. Yes, I'm a snowbird, but we own our property and we spend a lot of money at Apache Junction. Without snowbirds, there'd probably be no Apache Junction, period. I remember coming here 30 years ago or more in Mesa, where my mother was. She'd say, why do you want to live all the way out there in the middle of the desert, Apache Junction? Look at it now. And a lot of it's because we have expendable money and we spend it when we're here. So I don't like to be put down on and saying you're only temporary residents. Without us, you guys would be in big hurt. All of you would. But the other thing is, we don't like the fact that they're going to put a big two-story thing across. It's going to lower our property values. And we don't think that's fair. Would they consider putting the first row of houses next to the road single family, single level, and then go back, put the double ones back? That wouldn't block our view, wouldn't bring our property values down. And I just think they ought to consider 2,000 people who live next door and what their effect they're going to have on those lives and our values. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Who would like to go next? I'm going to call again. Anyone like to go next?
Good evening. Jim Murray. I'm also on Golden Vista Resort at 500 Iron Ore Drive. I live, my residence is directly across from the subject property. I face east towards that property and Superstition Mountains. I purchased this property last fall, and exactly 1 week after I closed, I went to an informational meeting where I learned about this proposed project and its scale. I was immediately concerned about the high density of this project because I'm directly across from the primary entry and exit of this proposed project. Also, obviously concerned about the sight lines, the views to the east, which would be compromised by the two-story structures, because it basically a line of two-story buildings continuous running the length of Goldfield in front of me. I guess foolishly assumed that the development would continue as it is right now, with Dulce Vita right across from us with single story, which is a beautiful property, I think everyone agrees, and very unobtrusive. This would be a dramatic change from that. I understand the concerns of the developer about being forced to do retail. Personally, it'd be beneficial right now to me because I think it's not feasible maybe for them to do that, so it'd be less traffic, and because they wouldn't be able to develop it until maybe in the future. So that'd be a selfish point of mine. I still think the best use of the property, and it'd still be feasible to do, would be single-story structures on the entire parcel. I understand a lot of good proposals have been made tonight. I as an elected official on a town board for several terms, and they're tough decisions when you take into changes in zoning and variances and so on, because they can have dramatic impacts that are different from the original vision that when the zoning was approved. But sometimes they're necessary, but you have to take into consideration the benefits and also the negative aspects, particularly to surrounding property owners. So please seriously consider some of the options that were presented tonight. I think there's been some good ones. And I still think it's feasible to do a single story and get quite a bit of housing in there that would really make an attractive community. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else like to go? Again, anyone else? Third and final call. I close out the public hearing.
Wow.
Yeah. He picked it all up on his mic. Okay, so now, the next time will be when we close. So now we have to go through the fact finding. So anyone want to volunteer for the fact finding?
Okay,
We
I
have
will.
two different ones.
Yeah. Okay, this is for the development request. The first one is that a better design cannot be achieved by applying the strict provisions of the underlying zoning district. The response is that the zoning is specific development plans is for regional hospital and commercial uses and is compatible with those. So I don't see an issue there.
Do we all agree? Do we all agree?
Yes.
Okay. That strict adherence to the provisions of the zoning ordinance is not required in order to ensure the health, safety, and welfare of the inhabitants of the proposed development.
True.
And I believe that is true.
Yep.
Whether the proposed amendment is justified by an error in the 2020 to 2050 general plan as originally adopted, it's not really an error, it's much of a change in market conditions. So I think that's okay.
Yes. We all agree.
Whether the proposed change is generally consistent with the goals, objectives, and other elements of the general plan.
No.
No.
Okay.
Disagree with that.
Do we need to take any action on that, or just?
Well, you should,
I
Commission, you should probably discuss that issue if you,
Yeah,
if
I-
you have comments.
I disagree, the proposed change. It does blend in with the characteristics of the areas around it.
But it's not consistent with
It's
the
not consistent with the
intent.
general plan.
No, but that's why we're doing
Right.
a change plan amendment.
Well, and I think that one of the points that was made tonight, that this was originally a residentially zoned area. It changed when Mayor Insulaco found a gentleman who was interested in building a hospital. And at that point, this was quite a while ago, and at that point, this was designed specifically for that gentleman and his plans. Unfortunately, that gentleman passed away. The plans fell through. So since it was changed specifically for that reason, and that reason no longer stands, you know, I think we can look at it from that point of view, that it was originally residential.
I concur.
Thank you for the history lesson.
You're welcome.
Well, and then that goes to, I mean, Kelsey gave us 3 options
Right.
earlier, but perhaps there's a 4th. At some point, we've got to clean up this hospital thing.
Yeah,
Do
it
we
needs.
wait till the next
Well,
general
and no,
plan
that's,
amendment?
that's what this would do, would eliminate that.
Unless, not under option number 3 that Kelsey brought up earlier.
No, but option number 1 would, and
Right.
leave some room for commercial.
Right, 1
And option 2 would
And
as well.
option 2 would
Would not
just
leave.
strike it all out.
But both options, the affected area is the 12 to 13 acre parcel south of Resort Boulevard.
It would
That is the hospital, and
definitely.
both option 1 and 2
And
negate
3,
that.
all of them would.
Well, no, 3 would leave it as it is.
3 would stay.
Mm.
Still a hospital.
Yeah.
Gotcha, it can't be a hospital, I'm sorry. I
Could
mean,
be.
But we can,
they're upset with
would be if
30-foot ceilings, and the hospital was,
Right, helicopters fly.
it
And more
was
particularly
40-some
helicopters, yeah.
feet.
right, but again, we can't, you know, that'll come up at a new zoning, rezoning
Right,
issue, so we don't
Right.
have to worry about that.
yeah,
Right.
so,
Okay, so are we in agreement then on 4?
yeah.
Yes.
5, whether the proposed change is justified by a change in community conditions or neighborhood characteristics since adoption of the plan. I think that's the reason we're here. 6, whether the amendment will adversely impact a portion of or the entire community by significantly altering acceptable existing land use patterns, especially in established neighborhoods. Other than sidelines which are not protected, I don't see an issue there.
Yeah, you can't protect the mountain.
Significantly reducing the housing to jobs balance in the planning area. Don't see an impact there
No.
since it's currently vacant.
Right.
Substantially decreasing existing or future water supplies
No.
should have no impact.
Actually, it'll help because
Yeah.
as they stated, it'll use less than commercial.
Replacing employment with residential uses. There's
No.
potential employment. The question is whether or not that potential employment can be realized.
Right.
Requiring additional or more expensive improvements to infrastructure systems and/or proximity to municipal facilities and/or services that are needed to support the prevailing land uses and which therefore may impact the level of service. This should have no impact on the municipal services. Increasing traffic without mitigation measures on the existing roadways beyond the planned level of service. I think you'd have to add a heck of a lot more traffic on Goldfield
Yeah.
than this is going to add to have any impact.
Plus, it'd be less than commercial.
Yes. G, affecting the existing character, visual, physical, and functional of the immediate area. Again, it's mostly residential in the area, and it's going to stay residential. And again, the only main issue there is the views for Golden Vista, and I wish we could protect those, but we can't. Increasing the exposure of residents to aviation-generated noise does not really apply.
No.
Materially diminishing the environmental quality of the air, water, land, or cultural resources.
No.
Again, no impact. Significantly altering the recreational amenities such as open space, parks, or trails. Right now, this is vacant land, and I think it'll be improving it rather than altering it.
Yes. And then page 4, we kind of started after page 4 is for the other section.
Say what?
It's required Apache Junction plan that the better design cannot be achieved. On the bottom there.
I thought I did that.
No, you started over on page 5.
Oh.
That was for the major
Yeah.
general plan amendment. This is for the rezoning.
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Did I do the general plan?
We just have to do them both.
Okay.
You want to continue doing them, or you want?
You want to do the findings of fact there?
Oh, sure.
She volunteered.
That a better design cannot be achieved by applying the strict provisions of the underlying zoning district. I don't see it. That strict adherence to the provisions of the zoning ordinance is not required in order to ensure health, safety, and welfare of the inhabitants of the proposed development. Nope. And that strict adherence to the ordinance is not required to ensure the property values of adjacent properties will not be reduced. Do we have a problem there?
No.
No, is that it?
That's it.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry.
No, I have it all over the place.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way.
Yeah,
It was a big packet.
yeah.
So anybody, we want to further discuss this, I mean? You want to make statements?
I'll make a statement, as I've said before, and I've kind of stayed quiet on this because I am a resident of Dolce Vita. I did get involved in this project early, more from the standpoint of trying to make sure that there was sufficient communication between the developers and our local management, because Dolce Vita is owned by a corporation out of Chicago, and I wanted to make sure that we had local management. Again, from a history standpoint, I've lived in Dolce Vita for 7 years now. I can recall at least 3 other times where we had survey crews out on this property taking a look at other options, and I know that at least 2 of those were single-family houses, and those never materialized. And given the economics today, single-family housing would be even less likely to be able to be put in there. So we have reviewed, I have reviewed it, and I've reviewed it with many of our residents. We do not see a big issue with the apartments. And
That's kind of my feeling.
Robin?
I'd like to clarify a couple of things for the neighbors. We can't protect your views. I'm sorry. Things will be built, and they will be built in front of you, behind you, beside you, etc. That's the way cities work. View protection is not something we can do, but it's interesting that the properties south of this are 2 stories on the other side of the road, and this is 10 feet less. The proposal is 10 feet less than the hospital was, and is, I think, about 5 feet less than what the zoning actually calls for there. People could have gone, if somebody had come in and didn't want to change anything, they just wanted to take the zoning that was there, they could build a 35-foot building, and that's it. I mean, that was part of the zoning code. So, yeah, I'm sorry about your views. Mine got blocked too. Understand exactly how you feel, but just wanted to kind of clarify that.
Does number 3 mean, like, if it remains to remain commercial, does that mean it stays zoned as a hospital?
Yep, it does.
So like that, the
You'd have to
hospital
come
can't
back
be
for another
rezoned
zoning
to
to get
something
rid
else?
of the
You'd have to
hospital.
come back and rezone the property in order
Like
to.
another builder would have to come
Yes.
and rezone it?
Yeah.
I'd like to make a statement and my views on a lot of this. You know, I think they've tried to go down the commercial route. I believe them when they say it's more valuable to them as commercial. I mean, all the numbers back it up if you look around. It has sat vacant for over 30 years, and it does nothing for the city. Again, remaining vacant will do nothing for the city. I take it very seriously, converting commercial to residential or any other thing. But again, I believe, like they have stated, you know, you can't force bad commercial. It does nobody any good. I'd love to protect views for everybody in this city.
Yeah.
They're important. I think they've gone out of their way to help protect your views. And, you know, the Chevron is going to block more of your views than what their proposed building will do. And we have a chance now to at least compromise and save views, because if somebody comes in and puts a 35, 40-foot building in, there's nothing we can do to stop that. At least now we can keep it down to this level. And I think that's a good compromise for everybody involved. It's not everything you want. I'm sure it's not everything they wanted out of this deal. But I think it benefits the citizens and the investors in our community. And I think it's a good way to move forward. It will bring in some of the rooftops we need. Does it bring all of them? No. There's not a project that we've had come up here that brings all the rooftops we need. But it's another start, and it's another piece to this puzzle we've been building. And yes, I agree with Robin about the general plan. It drives me nuts the way it is. But again, it's a general plan too.
Yeah, but we've ungeneralized
I
that
know,
plan.
You know, and I believe their numbers when they say that housing, you know, owned property doesn't work here for them. And, you know, where interest rates and stuff are, I tend to believe it's a tough market right now for some of these projects to get some single family and that type in. And again, do we want to wait till the market and maybe miss, you know, the golden opportunity to add value to our town? You know, I think we've missed out for 30 years. I don't want to miss out another year if we don't have to. I would rather get the new residents in and have them start contributing to this place I call home. So that's where my thoughts are on this. I live pretty close to the one that's going in right now down the street here, so I understand. I really do. It's right down, it's pretty much the same kind of development as this. I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to answer.
You're passionate.
Yes, I am.
I question why do we keep changing our general plan, which isn't anything that we decide upon, and it's not something that the city council decides upon. It's something that the citizens of our town decide. We vote on it. And since my time on this commission, I've seen numerous changes to the general plan come before us, and city staff asking us to recommend it. I've seen numerous proposals come up here, and this is what we want to do, it's going to be great for the community, and 2 years later, it's still sitting just the way it was when we approved it. Now, I am never been a fan of changing our commercial property into residential. Yet we do it all the time. Which means we're no longer going to have much commercial property. We've got little places where we can put a Circle K sometimes, or maybe Sally Jane's hair salon. But we're not getting too many places where we can put something that would benefit the community with employment, with wages that are sustainable for people to live here, and generate income through the sales tax that it generates through their production. We approved a deal down on Baseline and Tomahawk, 3-4 years ago? And that hasn't even started anything yet. And that was supposed to be building playground equipment and stuff like that. So we need to understand that we need to have commercial property, and I get the fact that we need to have houses. We need to have apartments. And I kind of agree with Commissioner Bigelow, we don't need high-end apartments. Our median income out here doesn't bring that much money into an apartment. We've got people trying to find a place to live that can't afford the $1,300 that you're charging for a studio. And you want to put children or family residences between two communities that are 55 plus? All right. I'm done. Otherwise, we'll be here for a while.
You don't have to.
Kind of decide if I want to. I said what I wanted to say.
If I open up my mouth, we'll be here another hour, so.
Please don't.
Let me speak my piece real quick.
Commissioner Gage?
Yeah. So, I agree with a lot I've heard tonight. I do not like converting the commercial to residential. However, it's hard not to agree with the developer with the respect that this has been sitting there for 20 plus years, zoned commercial, and nobody's touched it. So I mean, that lends validity to the point that it's not going to be developed as a commercial site. So I think we have to, accept that. And then it comes down to what type of residential do we want to put there. And Ari had the point about single-family homes. So do we, let it sit vacant until another developer comes in that wants to build, wants to try and build something different than what's proposed here now. That's an option, I guess. But I kind of like the other concept around more rooftops. We will enhance the possibility of more commercial developers coming in on other sites if we have more rooftops. So I'm kind of leaning in the direction of approving this as is.
Chair. As it applies to the general plan, you know, the key word there is a plan. You know, we have taken a look at this at some point in time and said, this is what if we have our druthers, this is what we would like to see develop throughout the community over time, and this is a 30-year horizon. One of the things that you always have to face when you're doing planning is conditions change. And as we discussed 2 weeks ago, particularly in terms of commercial space, a lot of the rules of commercial space that were prevalent 5, 10, 20 years ago are different today. And there's very little that says they're going to go back to where they were in the future. So, you know, the need for commercial space, particularly as we do more and more stuff online, and we are eliminating more and more middlemen. You know, you're now buying your auto insurance online through a website rather than through your local insurance agent, and that insurance agent needed to have an office in town. Now they don't. It's all done on the computer. That's just happening more and more. You know, you don't go to a retail store to buy anything. You just get it from Amazon, and they deliver it in 2 hours, or at least the next day. So a lot of things change, and therefore what was in the plan and what is reality today are sometimes different. And, you know, part of our challenge is we're a little bit beholden to the developers who actually come in and start to build some things based on what fits for a community. So I think that changes over time, and so I think that this is compatible. You know, I don't like reducing potential commercial area, but I don't want to put in, keep commercial area that is never going to be developed. So, and that's the way I feel about this land here is I don't, you know, whether it's 5 acres or 18 acres, I don't see anything where this is ever going to have enough population around it to develop it. So I don't have a problem making that change.
No, it's me.
Oh, you want
It's just me. I just wanted to address Dirk's point. You actually made the point about commercial when you said the building on Tomahawk and Baseline is still not built because we're not getting that commercial business. We're just not getting it. And this area, thank you, Jason, is simply not conducive to commercial. So I have to agree.
My point on that was it was a zoning change that we made.
But it's never going to be built.
Yeah. But how many other jobs have we done or seen come in and not be built?
Well, and another thing too is this is not a big enough area to employ many people. I think you're looking at maybe a Circle K, maybe something a little bit bigger, but you're certainly not looking at some kind of a plant or...
Nor would we want to place it there.
Not, true, but I mean, that would be an employment center of any kind. I don't think that the area would be conducive to that, even if it was flat. It's just it's a bad place where 60 comes in and this comes around. It's just a really...
And in the 30 years, it's been surrounded.
By what?
All the residential.
Well, one piece of it. The other piece belongs to the state and the
Oh, I'm just saying
county.
that little area.
Yeah, everybody else owns all these chunks. We don't. It would be lovely if we did. I'd love to see the hospital across the street from this. I think it'd be perfect. Unfortunately, I think that's state land. But anyway.
You ready for a motion?
I'll say something. Okay. I agree about the commercial aspect, it's not gonna work, right?
not
My big
doable.
thing is what type of housing it is. Not only do I live here and grew up here, but I'm raising my kids here. You know, AJ's always been different from every other city. Gilbert kind of used to be different, Chandler was different, Queen Creek was different. They became the same as every other city just to do what we're talking about tonight. Houses, bring people, more people, more people. But in doing all that, did they preserve any of their history of what their city is, of what it's been to live there, why people came there, why people visit every year, just in the name of bringing more rooftops, to bring industry, to do those things? Is it the best idea just to do that? You know, yes, we need houses, you know, but do we need houses where people can own and live the American dream in a community that they love and they want to be a part of? I have no doubt in my mind if something was built there for people to own, they would buy it. Like my example earlier, the dilapidated trailer that people are living in that paid over $300,000 for, just because they want to be out here. AJ's always been the diamond in the rough. Cave Creek was that a long time ago. Cave Creek now is, you can't even look at Cave Creek unless you're making buku millions of bucks. And that's kind of the route we're going. But do we want to become super high-end, just bringing people out here, throwing in more rooftops? Or do we want to preserve what it is of being a beautiful, probably one of the last remaining beautiful areas of the valley and of Phoenix in general, in the name of rooftops, in the name of bringing in residents just for their dollars, who, as we discussed, it would be rentals. You know, people are going to come, people are going to go. Or do we want the people that are going to be vested and continue to spend their money? And maybe one day down the road, the sales tax will be diminished because other avenues of revenue for the city will take place. I just don't think that we need to rush into something just because we have to do it. That's what I have to say.
I agree with that statement.
All right. Would anybody like to propose a motion?
I'll make a motion. Kelsey, I'm going to be doing option 2.
Can you call that one? Or Rudy got it.
It was there a second.
Okay. I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend to the Apache Junction City Council the approval of Plan Development Rezoning Case P-23-63-PZ, a request by Jason Barney and John Hartman with Recker, Guadalupe Properties, the developer, represented by Greg Davis of Iplan Consulting Corporation, the applicant, for an approximate 271 for-rent, single-family residential community to be named Silver Ray, generally located near the southwest corner of US-60 and Goldfield Road, from general commercial by planned development B1/PD and B1/PD to high-density, multiple-family residential by planned development RM2/PD, subject to the conditions of the approval found within the staff report dated April 23rd, 2024, with the elimination of project-specific conditions number 1 and 2.
Do we have a second? I'll second it.
Commissioner Kalan.
No.
Chairman Hanchey.
Yes.
Vice Chair Barker.
Tell me what conditions 1 or 2 is.
That's the commercial. This is the elimination of the 5-acre commercial.
So the whole thing is multifamily.
The whole thing is multifamily.
Yes.
Commissioner Gage.
Yes.
Commissioner Cantwell.
Yes.
Commissioner Bigelow.
No.
Commissioner Begeman.
No.
4 in favor, 3 against. The recommendation that will go to council is for approval of the plan development rezoning
in favor of option 2, with one little typo corrected in the motion, that is the southeast corner of 60 and Gold.
Thank you.
It's a small incidental,
We have to motion and do the
the second one.
major general plan amendment?
Yes, sir.
Can I get a motion?
Do I have to be a reader tonight?
Is it this one?
I got
Yes.
it.
It's
Okay.
right here.
Here it is.
Robin, look at your,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay,
No,
I'll do
this-
it.
You need option 2 because it's 18 acres?
Yes. There.
No,
No. Is this
Here.
it?
it's this.
Okay. I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend to the Apache Junction City Council the approval of General Plan Amendment P-23-64-GPA, a request by Jason Barney and John Hartman with Recker Guadalupe Properties LLC developer, represented by Greg Davis of Iplan Consulting Corporation applicant, to redesignate 18 acres located near the southeast corner of US-60 and Goldfield Road from commercial to high-density residential.
I get a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Rudy?
Commissioner Begeman,
No.
Commissioner Kalan,
Nope.
Chairman Hanchey,
Yes.
Vice Chair Barker,
Yes.
Commissioner Gage,
Yes.
Commissioner Cantwell,
Yes.
Commissioner Bigelow.
No.
4 in favor, 3 against. This motion will also go forward to council with a recommendation of approval, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Kelsey, the council meetings are on what dates? Oh, sorry, there we go. May 6th work session, that's a Monday, and public hearing on May 21st. In this council chambers. Both meetings will be in this council chambers.
All right, old business, there is no old business this evening.
No, sir.
New business, there's no
sir.
new business this evening. Information and reports.
The grand opening for Blossom Rock is this weekend. Hope you all can make it. And it's gonna be, they're expecting 3,000 to 5,000 people. Should be pretty fun.
Jiminy Christmas.
What is Blossom Rock?
It's down south.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, it's the
It's
new
the,
one, yeah.
Director's report, Rudy?
No, sir.
All right. Selection of meeting dates, times, and location.
Mr. Chair, I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission hold a regular meeting on May 14th, 2024 at 7 PM in the City Council chambers located at 300 East Superstition Boulevard. In the event there are no items to be brought forward to the commission, these meetings may be canceled. Notification of cancellation properly posted and the commission notified by staff.
Second.
Rudy, roll call, please.
Was that Commissioner Begeman that did the second?
Yes.
Commissioner Bigelow,
Yes.
Commissioner Begeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Kalan.
Yes.
Chairman Hanchey,
Yes.
Vice Chair Barker,
Yes.
Commissioner Gage,
Yes.
Commissioner Cantwell.
Yes.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
I now adjourn the meeting at 9:15.